Non-duality literally means not two, and it points to this idea of oneness or wholeness in all things, and it's beyond your personal understanding and awareness. And it does so through this idea of negation. In other words, you can't really understand who you are or your true nature by learning more about yourself. It's really learning about who you're not. And if you don't get it, that's perfect. Well, let's dive right in. Hi, I'm Russ Rapp, and welcome to my YouTube channel about nothing or no thing. And today we're going to go a little bit different of style. I'm going to go off script and just talk about non-duality, and it hopefully will make sense. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'll babble. Maybe I won't. But really what I want to focus on today is this idea of that non-duality is really about negation, about understanding that you are not that. That your true nature is not something that you perceive in this world around you, because it all comes from this idea that you're separate, or it's yourself versus another. And so the best way to walk through that is to really, and it almost can be done as sort of a meditation. I know other people really talk in a calming voice and walk you through that, something similar to what I'm going to do now. But what I want to avoid with this video is making you think that you have to get into some deep meditative state in order to somehow understand non-duality and what the point of it's really trying to make. Because really, it doesn't really matter what state of mind you are in, because the truth is just available at all times, and it doesn't require you to obtain it or to reach something. So I'm going to take a sip of my coffee mug. It took me a couple takes here to get it started because, you know, I want to make a video that makes sense and really kind of has a good rhythm to it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to really even make sense, which is nice because it takes the pressure off all this to make me sound like I know what I'm talking about. Because at the end of the day, the separate self really doesn't understand non-duality. So this is fun. But let's get started. So the easiest thing to understand when it comes to understanding what you're not is to look at something in the outside world and say, okay, who am I? I am not this coffee mug. That's pretty easy to understand. I am not this floor, I'm not this chair I'm sitting on, I'm not this t-shirt. That's pretty easy for you to comprehend. But let's take that a step further and let's look at, this is my hand, and this is conceptually part of my body. I can move it. It looks like I have free will in order to, you know, give a peace sign or to give a thumbs up. But let's look at that and say, okay, am I this? Am I this hand right here? And obviously I could say yes, but let's say I got into an accident and my arm or my hand got chopped off and I no longer had that hand. Would I consider that hand that maybe was cut off or not part of my body, do I consider that not me anymore? I would say at that point, if I don't have those nerve sensations running through, I would say that's not me. And so I guess that really kind of begs the question as far as, you know, what part of your body really is you, and what can you survive with, you know, people that have their legs or arms removed. Is it just the fact that you have a brain and some organs that keep the brain having blood and being able to think and that sort of thing? But over time, the cells in your body regenerate, so really the body that you had 10 years ago is really a brand new body, so in a sense that's not really you either. And then if you think about it in these terms, if let's say you got into a car accident or something and you're on life support and you really don't have much brain function, but the hospital that you're in is keeping your body alive, do you consider that to be you, or is that just a body? So what is really animating that body? So maybe that's who you are. So let's take a look at that. So what makes me think that I'm real? I feel sensations. I feel like if I pinch myself, I feel that sensation through my body, and it's telling me that there is something happening here, and it's related to my body. I can't feel necessarily anything on the outside of this coffee mug. So really, it makes me feel like, okay, I am this, and there is a separate other of a coffee mug that's not me, because I can't feel those sensations. Or you talk about feelings, when you're nervous or you're angry, a lot of times you feel it in your gut or your belly, or if your heart is racing, or if you're sad and you have a heavy chest feeling. That makes it seem like you are alive or that you're animated, but those things change throughout time. And so really, if I'm angry right now and I'm not angry in 5 minutes, who really is the true me? Because that's always changing over time. And thoughts are even more the case, where I'm saying this right now, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm thinking of a bear, I'm thinking of a fence, and I'm thinking thoughts right now, but really they don't have a lot of meaning to who I am, other than the fact that I feel like I have an identity because of these thoughts. But these thoughts change over time, and so really what you're looking at is non-duality is pointing to not only this physical realm that seems to the three-dimensional world that we're operating in, but we're also talking about how things change over time. And A Course in Miracles really points to the idea that if anything does change, then ultimately that is not part of the true reality, because your true nature is here and present at all times. And so if you take all these sensations, feelings, and thoughts, those make up what you would consider your personality. And so, are you your personality? Let's talk about that. So, I'm good at something, or I have a good sense of humor, or maybe I'm grumpy a lot, or I have a quick to anger. Whatever you think of your personality, that can also change and evolve over time, even though some of those main aspects tend to stay the same. And even, people that are some master yogis or some wise person, let's say when they're in their 60s, they make sense, and they're this wise leader on the top of the hill, or whatever you want to say. But let's say they get dementia, which is just a part of the world that we live in. They may start making no sense at all, or their brain may be deteriorating, and eventually they die. And that personality that maybe you once knew went away. So in a sense, you're not really your personality either. So let's say that maybe we are everything, like I talk about. We are this oneness, this wholeness. We are, or you are, I should say, not we. You and me, we are both this oneness. And what does that even mean? It doesn't really mean anything. And so this idea that you're everything is really just a concept that will change throughout your day. Even like right now, you may be in a good, comfortable, meditative state where everything seems hunky-dory. But in an hour from now, you may be having a argument with someone, or maybe someone cut you off in traffic when you're trying to get out of here, and that whole idea that you're everything kind of seems to fade, and you start to focus on this idea of yourself again. Well, the Course in Miracles really talks about this, and part of the first steps that you take in that process is to look at objects like this coffee mug and say, this coffee mug has no meaning. This chair has no meaning, and this floor has no meaning. This light has no meaning. The camera that I'm looking at saying hi to you right now has no meaning. And why does the Course in Miracles point to that? I think the point that they're trying to get at is that the fact that this coffee mug or the light or the camera seems to have meaning, but it only has a meaning to yourself. So all these ideas of who you are and what we've just been talking about all comes from the same source of this sense of a separate individual that is apart from everything else. And so even the idea of having some sort of non-dual awareness, or thinking that that you're somehow trying to find something for yourself, and understanding that this mug has no meaning. The reason why it has no meaning is because you're giving it a meaning in relation to yourself, and there is no self, essentially. And so that's what the Course in Miracles is really talking about, is understanding that you, the conversation that we're having, it's only really concerning you. You're not worrying about, am I this coffee mug, or am I this light, or am I this camera? You're not thinking about in those terms, because you're starting from the point of a self being already there and separate. And so you may not understand what I'm really saying here, because ultimately your separate identity won't ever really understand or find value in non-duality. And it's kind of like a dreamerless dream, where when you go to bed at night and you have a dream, there's a character that maybe you identify as yourself, and a scary monster, or your friend that appears in the dream. But ultimately, that dream, everything in that dream comes from you. And so there really is no separation, because it's being animated by the same self. And so one way I look at non-duality is that it's a dreamerless dream, or dreamerless dreaming, I guess you could say, where we're dreaming, but there is no dreamer dreaming this dream. And so we are, in a sense, the same dream that's occurring but not occurring. And I hope that makes sense or doesn't make sense. So, to sum it up, non-duality is really pointing to what you're not. It's not pointing to this oneness or this thing that exists. It's pointing to what doesn't exist. And so it's pointing to the fact that you're not that. You're not watching this video on YouTube of me talking. This is a moment that's happening at all times. And so what I'd like you to do is, if you like this video, or if you have any comments, you have any questions for me, go ahead and leave your questions or comments below. Like this video, and I'll just see you next time. And I'm going to say peace. This has been really fun. It's been real, and also unreal.